The Philadelphia Eagles are on an all-time streak right now in the history of the NFL, and for some reason, it's still not getting the credit it deserves. We're going to talk about it on today's edition of Locked On Eagles.
You are Locked On Eagles, your daily Philadelphia Eagles podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
We thank you so much for making Locked On Eagles your first listen each and every day. Welcome in, Eagles fans, to this Tuesday edition of the show. I'm your host, Louis DiBiase. We are brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet $5, and if your bet wins, you're going to get $300 back in bonus bets to use across the entire app. The Philadelphia Eagles 3-0 to start the 2025 season, the third time in the Nick Sirianni, Jalen Hurts era this football team has started 3-0, and what a fashion to do it in. An insane comeback win over the Los Angeles Rams. The first time since the Miracle in the New Meadowlands in 2010 that this team erased a deficit of at least 19 points in the second half to end up winning the football game. It's an all-time regular season classic that I don't think any of us will ever forget. And now when you look at the run the Eagles are on, not just this year at 3-0, but last year's Super Bowl season as well, the Philadelphia Eagles, we're in the golden era of this franchise's history, and we all know that. I think I said that 1,000 times on the episodes that I did this offseason, but I don't know if people are still, maybe Eagles fans do, but the national narratives still don't really value or emphasize the all-time run this football team is on right now, and not just from a franchise history perspective, but a league history perspective. The Philadelphia Eagles now, after that Rams win, have won 19 of their last 20 games. The only loss they have in the last 20 football games, which that's a lot of football being played over the last 2 years. The only time they lost in that 20-game span is against Washington when Jalen Hurts got concussed in the first quarter. So the last 19 games that they had a starter play from the first quarter to the fourth, whether it was Jalen Hurts or even last year against Dallas, it was Tanner McKee or Kenny Pickett, they won the football game. They have won 19 of their last 20 games. Since Jalen Hurts, Saquon Barkley, DeVonta Smith, and A.J. Brown all got together at the beginning of the 2024 season, when all four of those players start a game and finish it together, they're 18-0. So when the big four on offense have been together in a full game, since the start of last year when this whole thing came together, they're undefeated. Jalen Hurts, in his last 17 full starts, is 17-0. The only other team in the history of the NFL that's been on this kind of win streak, or this win-to-loss ratio, this 20-game run, are the 2003 and 2004 New England Patriots. They won 20 straight games, but no other team in the history of the NFL has won 19 of 20 games. They've won 17 straight with their starting quarterback. They're undefeated at 18-0 when the four big players in their skill position group on offense start and finish a game together. And yet, and again, I don't really watch national NFL coverage, but it's hard to not see it on Twitter. It's hard to not see it when you're going on TikTok and, on YouTube TV or whatever you do for sports coverage. It's hard to avoid it. And when I see people talking about the Philadelphia Eagles, it's not that they've won 19 of 20 games, including a Super Bowl where they stopped maybe the greatest dynasty in NFL history, or one of them that was about to make history with a three-peat, which nobody's ever done, and the Eagles beat them 40-6. I don't care what you say about the backups coming in. That score was 40-6. No, it's about, and now they're 3-0 right after that championship win. They have the most talented roster in football. Nope, none of that is being talked about. It's how they've gotten to 3-0. It's the caliber of player that Jalen Hurts is. It's their play style. It's all about the tush push. I mean, the entire first half of that game against the Rams, I felt like the Fox coverage was only talking about this minuscule 1-yard play. And I just don't think the NFL is valuing the Eagles or propping them up, giving them the flowers that they deserve compared to other teams that have done this in league history, like the New England Patriots. Consistent teams that win championships and compete for them year after year, like the Kansas City Chiefs. I don't know if they have to win that second title to do it in this era, but they have won 2 Super Bowls in under a decade. They've been to 3. It's not like last year was 2017 where it was the first time in decades they had made a championship and won in this fluky fashion. Like, there's nothing fluky about the Philadelphia Eagles right now. It's one of the most talented teams in the history of the NFL that's on an all-time win streak. They're on an all-time run that includes a championship. So you can't say, well, yeah, they did all this like the 2007 Patriots that went 16-0, but hey, they didn't win a title at the end. Like, the Eagles did win a title, and they're continuing the run, and it's still not getting the flowers it deserves, in my opinion. And so I wanted to give this Eagles core their flowers. Like, Eagles fans, appreciate this. Remember where we've been, because this is the golden era of Eagles football, and I don't know if there will be eras in the future that are competing for titles and consistent playoff contenders, I think, as long as Howie Roseman's the GM, but I don't know if there will ever be a core like this that we're watching right now. From top to bottom, on offense, defense, the coaching staff, the front office, like, this is truly special, and the quarterback is the face of it all, whether you like it or not. Going back and watching that game, I was unbelievably impressed by Jalen Hurts in the second half. And stock up to Jalen. That game was the epitome, the true representation of everything that makes Jalen Hurts a special football player, everything that makes him an elite player, everything that we argued for in his favor this offseason for why he should be considered a top 5 player at his position, why I think he's building a Hall of Fame level resume in the NFL. He's at an all-time pace. You saw those characteristics, those superpowers in the second half of that football game. I mean, Jalen was unbelievable. He was 18 for 28 in the second half for 212 passing yards and 3 passing touchdowns when trailing LA. Past the sticks, when he had to get aggressive in the second half, he was 10 of 15 for 169 yards, 3 touchdowns, and a 144.2 rating throwing past the sticks. I thought he couldn't elevate. I thought he couldn't put this team on his back with his arm. It just continues to prove everybody wrong. Like, how much more proof do you need? To be honest, I'm kind of probably arguing with nobody right now, beating a dead horse, because I think Jalen Hurts haters his critics, there will never be enough proof, because if they're not going to believe in him after 2 historically great Super Bowl performances, an all-time win percentage that's up there with the likes of Tom Brady and Joe Montana, Peyton Manning, the all-time greats, the records he's setting as a rushing quarterback, the improved passing stats, efficiency-wise, year after year after year. I just don't know what else you want from him. He's outdueling all the star quarterbacks that you think are ahead of him, like Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen and Joe Burrow and Lamar Jackson and Matt Stafford. Like, he's beaten all of those guys. He's undefeated against all those players except for Pat Mahomes. He's always elite in the biggest moments against the best teams and outduels the best players at his position. That is what I said all offseason should be valued as to why, yeah, again, his play style is different than those other guys atop the league at quarterback. But just because something is different doesn't mean it's not equally, if not more valuable. It's elite in a different way. And when you watch that game in the second half, and he was doing it in kind of the same way with his ball placement, the deep passing, the accuracy, like I just said, past the sticks, the fourth quarter clutch gene, 4th and goal, the game's on the line with a little over a minute to go. You have to score to win the game, and he puts it on the money in the end zone to DeVonta Smith. Like, I just don't understand, unless it's a bit, which we know for the national media it is. I don't know how you continue to watch Jalen Hurts do these kinds of things against great teams in big stages, huge moments, year after year, week after week, game after game, and not buy in. I don't know. Like, I don't know how you watch that tape and say, no, this is not a top 5 player at his position. Or even not maybe top 5, but there's a lot of people that still have him in like that 13 to 16 range, like top half of the league, but not in tier 1. And I think you're absolutely insane. I think if you're not in on Jalen Hurts at this point, argue with a wall. I think we're watching an all-time great talent develop a Hall of Fame resume. So just enjoy it. And it's at the most important position. He's winning you titles. Like, Eagles fans, I would just recommend not even getting involved in these debates anymore. Let me handle it. Just sit back and relax. Like, fans dream of having this kind of player at this position. Some fans never get this. Go look at the Cleveland Browns. Like, There are fans that go their entire lives without this kind of player at this position. A quarterback that consistently shows up in the biggest moments like this all of the time, that leads you to 19-plus point comebacks in the second half and wins you a title. Like, this is a dream. So just enjoy it. Jalen Hurts was a hero on Sunday against LA. So was Jordan Davis, too. Like, those are the heroes of the offense and defense. But we got to give our clutch performers from both sides of the ball flowers as well. Stock up coming your way right here on the Locked On Eagles podcast. Today's episode of the Locked On Eagles podcast, we are brought to you by 5 Hour Energy. Ladies and gentlemen, caffeine just got a flavor upgrade. 5 Hour Energy shots deliver tasty caffeine in 17 bold flavors. Each 2-ounce shot packs the caffeine of a premium 12-ounce cup of coffee, plus B vitamins and nutrients with 0 sugar and 0 crashes. What I love most is how portable they are. Big taste, tiny little shot. You can take it anywhere and get that boost when you need it. I was working overnights at a radio station from 10:30 p.m. to 5 a.m. doing podcasts, weekdays, weekends as well for the game. You name it, 5 Hour Energy had my back, even golfing during the summer. Very early tee times, 7 to 7:30. Bring a little 5 Hour Energy shot with you to get you through the day. Enough with boring, flavorless caffeine. It's time to give your caffeine a flavor upgrade with 5 Hour Energy shots. Get the favorites that you love, or be bold and try something new in-store and online at www.5hourenergy.com, or, of course, on Amazon today. Thanks so much for making Locked On Eagles your first listen each and every day. We are continuing stock up right here on Locked On Eagles after a big comeback win over the Los Angeles Rams to get the Eagles to 3-0. And of course, like Jalen Hurts, stock up to the quarterback. He was the hero of this game in the second half. So too was Jordan Davis. I mean, I couldn't believe going back and watching the film. And I guess I can believe it after the first 2 games he had against Dallas and Kansas City. Like, the breakout is here. But to see the multiple ways Jordan Davis took over, not just impacted this game, but took over the game with that 4th and 1 run stuff in the fourth quarter with 2 blocked field goals, with that chase down sack of Matt Stafford, all to keep the Eagles in this football game. I couldn't get over it because, honestly, even after last year, he had a sack in the NFC Championship. He had a sack in the Super Bowl. I thought maybe he was turning the corner. I thought he could improve. But I did kind of lose faith that the ceiling that Howie Roseman saw in this kid when he traded up for him in the first round, I thought that was unattainable. Now, that doesn't mean he couldn't be a good player. I wasn't going to say that he was a first-round bust. There are players in the first round that don't meet their ceiling, but are still good, valuable players, like Nelson Aguilar. I mean, he never met a first-round value, but he led your team in receiving in your first-ever championship win. That's very valuable. Like, that's who I started to think of Jordan Davis with a draft comparison on the defensive side of the ball. I never thought he could impact a game the way he did against Los Angeles, but that player is here. Like, that player you saw against the Rams is who Howie Roseman took over Kyle Hamilton. And look, I wanted Kyle Hamilton. Even this offseason, I tweeted something out about the one draft mistake might have been by Howie Roseman in the last 5 years, taking Davis over Kyle Hamilton, who is an elite do-it-all safety in Baltimore. But if you keep getting that version of Jordan Davis, I'll never talk about Kyle Hamilton again. Like, this could become the next Brandon Graham, Earl Thomas, where JD shuts me up and all of his critics up, because that is the kind of player you trade up for inside the top 20, inside the top 15 of a first round. That's the ceiling player that Howie envisioned they could get eventually coming out of Georgia. And now that the breakout is here, Howie's last 5 draft classes, like, they already looked elite, like all-time great. Now with Jordan Davis breaking out, you could make the argument it might be the best 5-year run of a GM drafting in the history of the NFL. And I don't think I'm being a prisoner of the moment with that statement. Like, when you look at DeVonta Smith in 2021, Jordan Davis in 2022, plus a first-round pick that you spent on getting A.J. Brown. And in 2023, you get Jalen Carter and Nolan Smith. In 2024, you get Quinyon Mitchell, who I'm going to talk about today on the show. He was on lockdown mode on Sunday against Devontae Adams and Puka Nacua. You get Jahad Campbell this past draft class. Jahad Campbell was a top 5 overall graded player for the Eagles on both sides of the ball. He was the 5th highest graded Eagle. Like, every first-round pick has broken out to be a star. JD was like that last one that was good, but he wasn't great yet. And I was beginning to not believe he could be great. He's great now. Like, I'm taking back everything I said. With more evidence, I wasn't wrong at the time, but now he is that player that I doubted he could become. He is truly taking that Dexter Lawrence, Vita Vea kind of step in year 4, just like Dexter Lawrence did. It's funny that Lawrence broke out in year 4, and JD's breaking out in year 4 as well. So now that he is breaking out, this might be the best 5-year run a GM has ever had, drafting in the first round, maybe. Maybe not an entire draft class, but the first round. I mean, this guy just can't miss. Howie used to be brutal drafting early on, and now he's absolutely incredible at it. And JD was a hero, the main hero, him and Jalen Hurts against the Rams. But there's some other guys I want to give flowers to as well. I mean, stock up to the big 2 in the passing game. You could say the big 3, big 4 with Jalen Hurts and Dallas Goedert in there as well. But I want to talk about DeVonta Smith and A.J. Brown. They really needed this 2022, early 2023, the NFC title and the Super Bowl of last year kind of reminder of who the passing game could be. Because it did feel like, and I've said it on the show before, that so far this season, it really did feel like they were playing as if they couldn't be explosive in the passing game. Like, we have to be conservative. We have to only lean on Saquon Barkley because we're throwing to guys like Deontay Burnett and Robert Davis, Josh Perkins, Greg Ward. Like, this is a 2019 kind of offense. You would think that's who they thought they were based on the week 1 and week 2 tape. And I get why they played that way last year, because Saquon Barkley was having the greatest season a running back has ever had. And Saquon Barkley is still the best running back in football, in my opinion. However, to play the way they had been the first 2 weeks passing the football, their offensive mentality was not going to work all year. You were not going to be able to win a championship that way. So that second half, that's why I said on the show yesterday, that second half will end up being this year's lesson that propels them forward into being a championship contender. Last year, it was that Tampa Bay loss that changed their mindset. This second half against LA, I think, is going to change their mindset, ironically, in the opposite way. But I think they need that this year because defenses are honing in on Saquon Barkley and saying, he's not going to beat us. Everybody else is going to have to beat us. Well, luckily for the Eagles, they have 2 of the best receivers in football, in A.J. Brown and DeVonta Smith. And that game showed you why you need to let them at times carry you as well. DeVonta is one of the most clutch players in the NFL. Back-to-back weeks now, he has a game-winning catch. A.J. Brown, I mean, he was 100% right about what he said in the locker room after the game. Let your killers be killers. Be aggressive. Don't play scared. Just because he's not, quote-unquote, wide open doesn't mean he's not open. Like, look, this is the NFL. There's not a lot of wide open plays. It's very slim margins. You have to take chances. Just because you're throwing into a tight window doesn't mean you're being reckless. Doesn't mean you're being careless. A.J. Brown showed you why. Just give him a chance. That corner, Darius Williams is just draped all over him on that 3rd and 10. Got to have it play backed up in their own zone. And A.J. Brown just outmuscles him because he's bigger, faster, and stronger than 99% of cornerbacks in the NFL. He made that 3rd and long conversion on the game-winning drive. He had another 3rd and long conversion on the other side of the field to eventually set up the DeVonta Smith touchdown. He had the deep ball that sparked the comeback on that first scoring drive in the second half. He had a touchdown of his own on the right side of the end zone. 4 massive plays by A.J. Brown. Just give the guy a chance. Like, he's the most complete, I think, the most well-built, complete receiver in the NFL. The best one-on-one receiver in the NFL. He can take over games for you if you just let him. He can take over games in so many ways, and they finally just let somebody else carry them for once. That wasn't number 26. And I'm really glad they did, because that's how you were winning in 2022. And that's how you got to 10-1 in 2023, was a historic run by A.J. Brown. Like, if you want proof that A.J. can elevate just as much as Saquon, look at that first half of 2023. Look how much was wrong with the defense and the run game. And that historic 7-game stretch that A.J. Brown went on was what was winning them football games that got them 9 games over 500. So stock up to A.J. Brown and DeVonta Smith. The passing game, eventually they were going to have to win you one, and they won you one against the Los Angeles Rams. One more stock up here for the offense. I want to give a shout out to Fred Johnson. Look, Matt Pryor was having a lot of trouble. That's an understatement with Jared Verse, Kobe Turner, Byron Young, and that Rams pass rush. They put Fred Johnson in, and they didn't look back. Just like that Saints, ironically, it was week 3 last year, Fred Johnson saved you against New Orleans last year, and this year he does it again. 25 pass blocking snaps for Fred. Only 2 quarterback hurries, 0 hits, and 0 sacks allowed. Like, that saved you the game because Matt Pryor was just allowing pressure every single snap, and there was nothing Jalen Hurts could do. Even if he decided he wanted to be more aggressive in the second half, if Matt Pryor stayed in the game, they were going to lose. And I don't know why Pryor was the first call at right tackle anyway. Moving forward, Fred Johnson so obviously needs to be your swing tackle on both sides of the football. One more stock up here before we get into segment 3. The 3 defensive pillars were incredible on Sunday. And the 3 pillars on the defensive line, it's Jalen Carter. At linebacker, it's Zach Bond. And in the secondary, it's Quinyon Mitchell. Those are the 3 pillars of your defense. And I know Jalen Carter still looks kind of out of shape, and it's a little bit concerning, but he was the main guy that blocked that first field goal to keep you in this football game. He consistently got to Matt Stafford. He made some big plays against the run as well. It shows how dominant Jalen Carter is as a player that even when he's not at 100%, I think his arm's injured too. He's been grabbing it a lot. He did get banged up against Kansas City. He's still this impactful in the game. And Zach Bond kind of got lost in the shuffle because the offense was so bad in the first half. But Zach Bond had that really great interception where he just perfectly jumped that ball in the middle of the field. Had 2 other forced incompletions to force punts. He had the highest grade of any Eagle against the Rams, according to Pro Football Focus. It was him, A.J. Brown, Jordan Davis, Moro Ujoma actually at 4, and then Jahad Campbell at 5. Like, Zach Bond, it's unbelievable this guy used to be an edge rusher, and now he's like a top 2 coverage linebacker in the NFL. And then my silent assassin, Quinyon Mitchell, against Devontae Adams and Puka Nacua against the Rams, 6 targets, just 3 catches allowed, 20 yards and 0 touchdowns. The 3 pillars of your defense were quietly just doing what they do, being elite top 5 players at their position, and that defense holding the Rams over and over again in the red zone was really the underrated part of this story, of this game, was what allowed the offense to come back in the first place. Because if the Eagles give up a couple touchdowns, another touchdown or 2, this game was over. They had no chance of coming back. And Quinyon Mitchell, Zach Bond, and Jalen Carter were a big part, a massive part of keeping you in that football game. All right, guys, we'll wrap up this Tuesday edition of Locked On Eagles. Coming up next, CJ Gardner-Johnson already released by the Houston Texans. Should the Eagles consider a second reunion with Chauncey? I'm going to tell you why. Although I'm a massive fan of Gardner-Johnson, I don't think it's the right time for that. I'll get into it coming up next right here on Locked On Eagles. Today's episode of Locked On Eagles is brought to you by FanDuel. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel's making sure you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you're going to get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love using FanDuel because it fits however you like to bet. Player props, building a same-game parlay, or even jumping in live as the action unfolds. It makes every game more exciting, whether you're watching your team or just keeping an eye on your fantasy lineup. For me, I had those 3 bets for the Eagles against the Rams. I hit on Jalen Hurts, the over for 200 passing yards. If you take an anytime Jalen Hurts rushing touchdown, that's always going to hit. Also took the over on DeVonta Smith, the 49.5 receiving yard line that he had. Went 2-1 this week. Not too bad for LOE 3. You can bet on it all as well at FanDuel. It's quick, easy, and the best way to add a little more energy to your Sundays. So are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. All right, Eagles fans, let's wrap up this Tuesday edition of the show talking about an old friend who's apparently was not being a good friend to the Houston Texans. He's a crazy person, man, but I love him. CJ Gardner-Johnson already released by Houston 3 weeks into the season. Sounds like it was a lot of inside the building stuff. Chauncey was not happy with his role in the defense. Now, remember, Houston has a very deep group of safeties. They've got Kalen Bullock, who was a great rookie last year. They've got Jalen Petrie, who's one of the most underrated safeties in football. Jimmy Ward is also on that roster, so I don't think he loved not being the focal point. Sounds like, according to reports by Houston insiders, that he was complaining about the scheme. He wanted to blitz more. He wanted a new contract. He was complaining about another player in the secondary's contract. I don't know if he was talking about Derek Stingley. That'd be an insane person to target. But overall, it almost sounds like he was, for our Seinfeld viewers out there, it almost sounds like he was pulling a George Costanza where he was trying to get released. Like the Texans are 0-3 as well. So when you have a losing football team and you have a deep group at that position that he plays and he wants a new contract, like that's a recipe for disaster, having CJ Gardner-Johnson on that kind of team. And I know that as much as I love him more than pretty much anybody does in the Eagles fan base and media group, like I thought his value to last year's championship team is extremely underrated. But even for me, like he's not perfect for all teams in all situations. Like if the Eagles were in a 2020 kind of situation, I wouldn't want him on the roster. I don't think he would be great for that kind of season. I don't. He's very specific for like the kind of team you have, the coaching you have, the right environment. But in those kind of environments, he could be what he was for you in 2022 and 2024. Does a reunion, like, so that's why he just didn't make sense in Houston considering the situation for him and for the team. Should the Eagles bring him back? As much as right when I saw they released him, I said yes. Like, let's put him out there. 3 safety looks with him, Reed Blankenship, Drew Makuba, Cooper DeJean, and Quinyon Mitchell are your 2 corners. Like, let's do it. Makuba or Gardner-Johnson could get some slot reps. Like, it could work. Thinking about it more before the show, I wouldn't do it because for the same reasons that he fell out of favor with Houston, it's going to happen in Philly again. Howie Roseman already traded him and was going to release him if he couldn't find a partner to trade for, to trade C.J. Johnson to. He was going to release him because he wasn't willing to pay him. So he wants a new contract. He told the Texans that. He told the Eagles that. The Eagles have already shown their hand. They're not going to pay him. So he's not going to love that. His role was not going to be the same either. He didn't like his role in Houston. Well, got news for you. They drafted your replacement in the second round of Drew Makuba, who I think has been really good so far this year, was one of the main reasons you beat the Kansas City Chiefs week 2. And I want to see him continue to grow in that role next to Reed. You're not going to get your old spot back, so are you going to be okay being the third safety here, where you were just like the alpha dog last season? The team that just told you that they don't value you enough to pay you long term? Like, I can't see that. Like, Vic Fangio to the media said that, Gardner-Johnson, losing him's not that big of a deal. Like, basically said your role wasn't really that valuable. And again, I disagree with that logic. I don't agree with Fangio there. I was not happy when they traded him away. It was one of the only moves this offseason I did not like from the Eagles. But with all that being said, it just wouldn't make sense right now unless there was an injury to Makuba or to Sidney Brown. So I don't think it's, as much as I love Gardner-Johnson and what he did for last year's Eagles, for the 2025 Eagles, I don't think it makes much sense. And even if you signed him and you had all of those safeties on the field, like, who's playing the slot? Gardner-Johnson, the one thing he didn't do well last year was cover. Like, man coverage, he was a problem. Like, he was a liability last year. He gave up a lot of touchdowns in the red zone. Drew Makuba could play in the slot. He's done it before at Texas, but in Clemson. But for me, I think his elite traits are better used as a deep safety, like reading a defense, cutting off passing lanes, trying to get interceptions. I think Gardner-Johnson and Makuba, both of their strengths are kind of in the same area of the field in the same role. That's why I loved Makuba being the player they handpicked to replace Gardner-Johnson, because I think he's the same kind of playmaker in the same areas of the field. So, no, after thinking about it more, giving it more thought before this episode, as much as I love the guy and he's a crazy person, and it's kind of funny hearing what happened in Houston, at least for me, because I think he entertains me. His style, because he's very old school, and I like players like that. No, I don't think he should come back for the 2025 season, unless there's an injury, but I can't foresee that. And even if that happened at this point, I think they would bring in somebody else, like a Justin Simmons. I don't think a second reunion is going to happen. Would I be surprised by anything Howie Roseman does? No. But I'm not predicting it, and I wouldn't suggest it for this year's football team. If you wanted to keep him, you should have did that in March. You should have extended him and not drafted Makuba. Took somebody else in the second round, like a tight end. But for me, like right now, the state of the team, no, I wouldn't do it. All right, that's going to do it for today's edition of the Locked On Eagles podcast. Guys, thanks so much for making us your first listen each and every day. We'll be back tomorrow, and we've got 3 more shows for you this week, so subscribe to Locked On Eagles on YouTube and all audio podcast platforms. Until tomorrow, thanks so much for downloading, watching, and listening, and let's go Birds. Fly, Eagles, fly.